Hello. This video is going to be more of a freeform type of thing, which is pretty different than what I have been putting out. But its aim is to cover some popular topics the community has about the game Lethal Company at the moment. And I'll try to present it in a more digestible format, as I know people don't really want to scroll through a bunch of comments and forums and whatnot to find out about these things. The popular topics I'm talking about will be things like people's gripes or what they like about the game with certain things like its balance, its atmosphere, its themes, as well as things like suggestions for future content that people have. I've picked out a couple that I really like, and I'll give my opinions on these things. As I'm going through and discussing these topics, don't take my word for fact, as a lot of these things are very subjective. So just because I say something should be addressed or added doesn't mean it actually should or will. And if you don't agree with something, that's absolutely fine, just let me know in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you. Anyways, I hope you enjoy. I'll start off here with some concerns that people had about forest keepers, which I think relates to the balance of the game. So, the general consensus that I've seen from comments is that people think that forest keepers at the moment are overtuned, which I don't totally disagree with, but I don't think the problem is as big as some people might make it out to be. Now, obviously, when you start playing the game, this stuff isn't common knowledge at all, especially if you don't look at guides, which I suggest you don't, because it's a lot more fun to figure this stuff out. But recently they got nerfed, and this nerf made it so they run slower, which is not a huge deal. It's not a very big decrease in their speed. But you also get the fear effect, like, you know, when you see a dead body and your vision goes blue and your ears start ringing and your FOV gets increased, that gets applied to you as soon as they spot you. So what this lets you do is it lets you start running for cover as soon as you get spotted, or at least whenever you determine you need to. So even if you don't drop your items, it should be pretty easy to get to safety, and if you really want to be safe, you can drop everything and just run as fast as you can. The other main concern, which I do agree more with, is that they linger around wherever they last saw you, which can be really annoying, especially if they're right outside your ship. This is something I do feel like is unbalanced, because some of the time it's really easy to deal with, which I'll explain how in a second. Other times it's really annoying, if not impossible to deal with for some people. I'd say it's easy sometimes, because if you're able to afford stun grenades, or you bought some beforehand, stunning giants around your ship is super easy because they're standing still, they're really close to you, you just have to pull a pin, they get stunned, people run in, people run out. Whatever you need to do, it's easy, simple as that. However, if you don't have stun grenades, which I think you should buy almost all the time whenever you can now, at least have a couple in the ship. If you don't buy stun grenades, they just linger there. You need somebody to run around the ship to distract them, or you need just people to get lucky and run in when they find the opportunity to, but even then they might get grabbed because of how fast giants can be. So overall, I think once some of these characteristics of giants are more common knowledge, people might not think they're that big of a deal, but I don't think they're in the best spot that they could be. This next part of the video is going to be talking about topics that seem to be pretty popular in the community. Everybody seems to have an opinion on them, as many people left comments. They might not be positive, they might not be negative, but they just seem to be important things that people want to talk about. And as a second opinion, I'm going to have my friend Liam helping me talk about these things.
Hello.
That's
Let's get
Liam.
to talking, shall we?
Yeah.
Alright.
So the first major point a lot of people brought up were gaps. The common opinion seems to be that they need to be addressed in some way, so it's mostly people have an issue with it, if not everybody. I think that at the moment it's not rewarding to take a jump. You don't have enough time to think about where you're going to land. You can't look across the jump to see if there's anywhere to even go. You just have an enemy right on your tail after you take a risky jump.
You should get a little bit of space, of maybe like a second or two.
Yeah.
If a monster's chasing you and you make a jump, right now they just walk across it as if it were ground. I don't know, I feel like they could play it a little animation. I remember you said that you think it might be a placeholder for something, but I don't know, I feel like an animation is needed. Like, it would make the game feel a lot smoother.
Well, even at the moment, like, they just teleport across the gap. Like, would it be that bad? Like, I know animations take time, and it takes development time away from other things. And Zeekerss is one dev, as far as I'm aware. But would it be that bad if like maybe they just waited on one side for a second or two before they teleported across? Like, it would be weird for them to stop in the middle of nowhere, but it wouldn't look that much worse than them just teleporting.
Yeah, flinging themselves across the gap at Mach 5.
I have some clips. Oh, it's not bringing up. I have some clips here. I'll try and stream for Liam as well. So here's a hoarding bug. It can happen with every enemy, as far as I'm aware, where they'll be on one end, and then they'll jump over, and then they'll also jump over here. So they act like really sporadically and unnaturally. But yeah, maybe like I said, if they could be on one end, and then they wait So 1, 2, and then they appear over. So you have some time to make some distance. You have some time to know where you are, and to try and outmaneuver them in like a thoughtful way rather than just taking what you got and taking your chances.
A mad dash, yeah.
I like your idea of bringing of hopefully adding animations for something like this, but like I said, that would take time. So if something like this just even quickly could be implemented, I feel like it would help the flow of the game and put it in a better spot.
Yeah, I was more thinking just like a simpler jumping animation. I mean, they already just whip themselves across, like just having their legs shoot them upwards a bit beforehand, and then maybe it takes an extra second. But yeah, the Thumper is literally like flying across my screen.
That kind of goes into the next thing that I wanted to bring up, which is a lot of people seem to have issues with the Thumper, especially with this is an old clip. You can see, well, I'm standing on a railing, but I think that's Lath there is standing on a railing, and the Thumper can't get us, but the Thumper would be able to get us. But anyway, the Thumper is also teleporting across the gap, but what's different with the Thumper is that it gains momentum the further it travels, and it seems to, like, if I was standing at the end, I think I put it in a video too. If I was standing down there, it would keep the momentum of flying across, and then
it like
pretty
catapults itself like a slingshot.
So that could be fixed if they were able to like just wait on one side and then teleport over. But anyway, leading into Thumpers, just people in general seem to have an issue with them now because you can't stand on a railing. I think the railing was necessary. It was too easy to deal with them. They were boring. So long as you had a shovel, you just jump on a railing. That's it. You hit them a couple times, they're dead.
There's actually like meaning to seeing one other than now. Well, before they remove the rail cheese, you see a Thumper, you just stand on top of something with a shovel, and then it's dealt with.
Yeah.
No one really. I remember we'd always just go, oh, there's a Thumper, and then we'd kill it, and that would be the end of that.
And like, you can still avoid them this way. You can jump on top of tall shelves and stuff, so you can avoid them. It's just that you aren't able to hit them, and
they were trivialized when people figured out the rail cheese. Became boring.
Yeah.
And now that it's gone, it's back to being well, it's exciting, but they do just kill you almost every time they see you. I feel they don't.
That's what a lot of people said, is that like they don't seem to give you a second chance, because in their logs it says that you're able to take many turns, and this is something that I've said in like 2 guides now, is that you can take turns to avoid them. But that just doesn't seem to be the case always, and they're pretty inconsistent in this regard, and in some others that I'll bring up, because they just seem to keep their momentum around corners. So if you take a corner, think you can avoid them, they'll be right on you in a second anyway.
Yeah, I also think that they're too hard during the first quota period. Like, you have what, 1 shovel at most to deal with it. Like, you can't jump on the railing anymore. Your options when you see one is, well, it's sort of intended, but run or die. But the die part is in bold, and the run part is like, I don't know. It doesn't happen very often. It usually just gets your ass.
Yeah. Another problem, this isn't something that I've seen people bring up, but I have a pretty big issue with it. This isn't the biggest, or I mean, this isn't the best clip for it. But Thumpers just generally seem to avoid damage sometimes now. I didn't find that this was the case beforehand, but their hitbox or something seems to be pretty inconsistent.
Their hitbox is definitely broken. I've hit them before, and it just plays the sound of you hitting a wall or something.
Yeah,
and they just stand there.
I have this here. So that maybe should have hit it. Not the best hit. I mean, what am I hitting there? It just looks like it's passing it through it, and then I start hitting it.
Don't hurt me! Don't hurt me!
So maybe this was just an off case where the shovel was reaching the railing instead of the Thumper, but I've had this happen at least 3 times. And
I've had this happen next to like pallets and stuff. Like things that are low to the ground that you wouldn't be hitting in a swing. Where the Thumper will stand on one side of it and I'll be on the other, or I'll be on it or something, and it just seems to pass through and make the ground hitting noise.
So maybe it's something like your shovel will actually hit the furthest thing it can reach rather than the closest thing, which doesn't make I mean, I don't know if this is the case or not. But this doesn't seem to happen with the spider. Like, I can kill a spider easily just by backing up and hitting it. It doesn't hit the floor underneath it or railings next to it or anything. But yeah, just in general, I think Thumpers need a pass over of some sort.
Just a quick interjection before we move on. I think that Thumpers being more annoying now increases the value of flashbangs and zap guns and stuff. But the zap gun kind of still doesn't work.
But
Like if you're being in an actual like panic scenario, the zap gun will always hit your teammate.
Yeah.
It will never do what you want it to do, and it will always it's an expensive item, and all it ever seems to do is get you killed. Like you might as well just buy 4 flashbangs.
the stun grenades are amazing now. Like I almost always, if I'm going to a medium moon, definitely a hard moon, I almost always bring one in now because it just.
The stun grenades are more versatile now. You can
Yeah.
stun giants, you can stun thumpers, nutcrackers, etc. They're just really valuable.
But especially in this case, like if you do run into this bug, it makes dealing with thumpers in the first place so much easier because they get stunned for a super long time. If you have a shovel, if you can hit them, it should be easy to deal with them. So I guess that's to anybody who's having issues with thumpers. Try out the stun grenades. They're not that hard to use, especially after you use them like at least a couple times. But they should make thumpers much easier to at least get away from, if not fight.
I think the zap gun fundamentally kind of needs to be changed. I don't know. I think it'd be cooler if it worked as like a taser instead of
Like it was just instant. It
A
didn't have the
lightning
scanning
bolt.
beams.
It should have the scanning thing for like a second because it's already like it's like a key part of it. But I don't know if I like you have to stare at it the whole time. Like
It
kinda-
makes it a cooperative item, which I think is interesting, but it does limit its use pretty heavily because
it limits its use, and if you accidentally zap your teammates, which you do like every time, you're just standing there zapping your teammate for like 4 seconds while your teammate's screaming
and
getting eaten by whatever.
I think my main problem, which we've kind of like covered in general here, is that a stun grenade costs $30 now. A zap gun costs $400. With a stun grenade, you can stun something and then switch to a shovel and deal with it. With the zap gun, you're like you said, you're just stuck using it yourself the whole time, so you can't use it to independently deal with a threat or something.
It's just too expensive to make it worth buying half the time. We always just get flashes.
Yeah. And there's the new radar booster. We tried using it aggressively. I'll probably include a clip of that here.
It did not work.
Doesn't
very
work well, but it is another option, which I think if you got used to it, you could probably make better use of that in the zap gun. Maybe.
Probably. I just remember accidentally killing Lathe and then you because I'm completely blind with a shovel.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Oops.
The next
What's up next?
next thing people seem to be pretty divided on was the Nutcracker. So the Thumper was people don't like the Thumper generally from comments. I know that there are like, I mean, I like the Thumper. I just think there are a lot of issues with it.
I like the Thumper a lot. I just think that it's currently broken.
But the Nutcracker, it's you love it or you hate it. A lot of people said they love the new addition. I'll include the shotgun here too because it just fits in with it. A lot of people said that they just love it and myself included. Like I think it adds chaos to the game, which just makes it funny.
It fits. It's whimsical. It's in line with the game. There's already the Jester. They added like whoopee cushions and stuff. That's funny. I'm fine with them having a Nutcracker with a shotgun.
That's a gripe that people had with it, is that they felt it doesn't fit the theming of the game, which I can see because, I mean, there's
Someone
stuff like...
said it was like a natural ecosystem or something kind of feel.
Yeah,
I remember you
that
pulled
was a
up
pretty
yesterday for me.
common point, was that people felt more so that before it was added, there was a very natural feeling to things. There was a natural order, but with the Nutcracker, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. But to that, I think I would say that the Jester exists in the game, and I know that there was somebody that pointed out that the Jester also doesn't fit the theming. But then there's stuff like the Ghost and the Company Wall. These don't fit in a natural sort of setting, I don't feel. And I think Zeekerss should have the liberty to take whatever, creative liberties they want to take with the game.
I don't know. It sort of fits into one of two categories. You have like things like the Thumper, which is like a natural kind of thing, and then the Jester is like a huge skull that pops out of a box, and then the Nutcracker is an eyeball that comes out of the top of the Nutcracker's head, or like his neck when he reveals it. I don't know. It does really just fit in the same category for me, those two. I don't really see a problem with them existing in the game. Doesn't really take me out of it. And like you said, it adds chaos. It's something that, it's like a mini boss when you find it. It's awesome. You really got to put teamwork and cooperation to it.
I I also think that the game itself just generally is, I think it's meant to be, at the very least, a dark horror, or I mean a dark comedy mixed with horror, if not just comedy horror. So having goofy enemies like this that will smear you across a wall, I really don't think it hurts the identity of the game. But I do understand where some people are coming from. It also just kind of naturally fits with the mansion. Like, I know that they can appear. Liam's let me know that they, like you said, you found one on Assurance.
Yeah, you can find them anywhere. They're just way less common.
Yeah.
I found one on Assurance.
But you commonly run into them on mansions, which I think just fits completely fine because the mansions are cozy. It's very, like, I mean, it could be Christmas time all the time on those places with the snow and stuff.
Maybe they'll change the spawn rates after Christmas,
Yeah.
but the Nutcracker feels like it pops up a lot. Like a lot on the mansion map.
Mm-hmm.
It's there almost every time.
Maybe it doesn't make as much sense on Titan, but Titan's also snowy, but it is an industrial complex, so it doesn't totally fit the indoor theming of it. It does stick out more there. But again, I like the Nutcracker. I'd be completely fine if it stayed Nutcracker themed for the rest of the game's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, whoops, the shotgun. I think pretty much the same thing can be said about the shotgun. It does remove some horror elements. I'm less scared when I have a gun in the game. I think most people
but
share
at the
that
same
sentiment.
time, you do have to kill a Nutcracker, and you get a total of what? 4 shots? You get 2 in the gun and 2 extra?
Not even. I don't know if it depends on how many the Nutcracker shoots, but I have ended up with just 1 in the gun, and sometimes it drops 1 shell. It generally seems to drop 2 and then maybe have 1 or 2 shots in the gun. It is a rare item, so I don't think it's overpowered. You don't get to use it very often. You can...
I still haven't used it.
Exactly.
Someone else takes it every time.
I don't think it's a compound clearing machine. Like, you can't run into a compound and expect to just deal with
buy
nothing.
Bullets for it either. It's like, it kind of does become a paperweight after like 2 more runs.
If even that, it just depends on how you use it. And it's a liability to carry. Like, you can always use a shovel, the shotgun, and again, run out of shells. It's nothing. People don't like it. It seems to be a problem with people's opinions on the theming. I'll bring up my feelings again that I think that this game is heavily, like, it's almost 50-50 split between a comedy and a horror type of game, like, genre. And the shotgun just adds to the comedy factor. It's something fun that you can use. Every time I'm using it, I'm laughing, even if I die with it. So
yeah.
I don't think it clashes with things too much. But again, everything is subjective here. So fair enough if you don't like it. The last thing I'll have Liam here to talk about is the topic of healing. Healing is probably by far the most popular suggestion, at least that I've seen in the comments on the post and on the last video. Which makes sense, because healing is in many games, especially ones like this. Even in some of Zeekerss' older games, like the Upturned, you can heal in that game. So why can't you heal in this game? What's the reason behind it? Because you can take damage, non-lethal damage, and people want to heal, so why can't you?
I feel like it's definitely a stylistic choice. It would make the game too easy. You'd be so aggressive if you knew you could just heal.
Yeah, that's entirely what I initially thought. I thought most people, I think the most basic way that healing could be implemented is add a medkit item, you can bring it in, you use it, you heal. Might not be full health, might not be half health, it could be anything. But anyway, just a portable item that you can use to heal. That would not be balanced. I think that would just make people play recklessly. They wouldn't think about what they're going to do. They would just be, oh, I can take damage here, and then I can heal.
Especially because you can bring, well, realistically, you'd be bringing like 1 or 2, but you could bring 4 medkits in each, or per person then. You could basically just not have to worry about dying from anything that doesn't kill you instantly, which...
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah. Theoretically, of course. You can always just get, killed by a bracken in 1 second.
I think it would probably, if it was added in this form, I think it would be a disposable item, kind of like how the TZP is.
like a health syringe or something.
That was an interesting suggestion, is that the TZP, it's kind of a meme. Now nobody seriously buys the TZP for its use. If you do, that's awesome, but you're 1 in a million, I think. People suggested that... Or that there's
You're just saying that because you buy the TZP.
Maybe. There's 2 people out there now. There's me and 1 other person that seriously use it. But it would be more. It would make more sense if the TZP maybe let you heal, because there's a negative effect to that. You become delusional, so it's not really safe to use indoors because you'd probably end up running into an enemy anyway. I think that would be more balanced, but still it'd be over the top, which I'll go to I'll go more into that in a second.
We brought this up last night, but people who like gambling, you could get like a potion or something that heals you and then has I don't know, like a list of negative debuffs that it could also apply. That'd be funny.
But I mean, we personally know someone. Not gonna name any names, but they know who they are.
But he is a gambling addict.
No, they like to complain about RNG, and I think that RNG is something that it can have its place in games. But having an item like this, like if you want to be lucky, I don't know. I guess it might be okay because you could just get lucky.
You could just not buy it too.
Going back to the point of saying that you could bring in a bunch of medkits and then play recklessly, an argument that could be brought up to that is that you can just do the same thing with stun grenades. You can bring in as many stun grenades as you can, like a couple shovels, and then you can just clear out a compound or complex. But I think there's a major difference there, and that being that you have to actually sort of think about using a stun grenade, and even if you use it wrong, you can
waste stun grenades. You can't waste medkits.
And you have to put yourself within arm's reach of dying sometimes, depending on the enemy. With a medkit, you can't. I would say like it's very hard. It would be very hard to use it wrong. Like you can't. You just run away and then you use it. It's not like you have to think about your timing and your placement and like what you'll do afterwards.
As long as you're not actively being like attacked, you can pop a medkit almost any time.
So overall, I think you'd agree with me on the fact that a portable medkit would be unbalanced. It would make the game unfun because you would just go and clear out a complex, get out the loot. I mean, maybe that's fun, but it would get repetitive after some time because that would be the strongest thing that you could do with it, is that you just go and wipe out everything, loot all the stuff.
One could argue that the game is repetitive already, but, well.
Yeah, well, again, it's subjective. I personally think that it would lead to a strategy.
Not the medkit.
It would lead to a strategy
if
that would be...
If they were to add a medkit, it would be a ship upgrade thing. I think it would have to be a stationary thing.
Yeah, that was I'll point out the name just because there was one person that pointed out this idea, which I really like.
We discussed all this yesterday too, so some stuff might be in reference to that.
This was, sorry if I pronounce it wrong, Madrid. They pointed out, or they thought of the fact that you could, like Liam said, have a healing station in the ship. This would make it so that instead of just not caring about when you take damage because you could heal inside the complex so long as you brought a medkit in, you would have to be concerned about taking damage because it would mean if you wanted to heal, you would have to waste time going back to the ship. But it would also let people keep on, like if you get bit by a spider, it's hard to justify going into the complex, especially on later moons, because even just a snare flea could end your day.
It always ends up as 3 people sitting around a monitor watching some guy who isn't injured run around frantically inside trying to pick up items.
They also brought up the fact that there'd be a very limited amount of healing. It
would draw from a big pool maybe, or it would just.
I think they said that
take some time to heal.
It recharges, over time. I think maybe the best way to do it is just that every day you get enough healing to fully heal one person and heal half a person, and you can use as much of that at a time as you want. Let's say I think a person has 100 health. You could heal for 75 health on one person. You could heal for 50 on another, and then the rest of it could go to one person. It doesn't have to be used on just 1 or 2 people. It could be used on as many as you would want. So yeah, I think that would be a balance. Just in short, I think that would be a balanced way of implementing it, because it would force people who get hurt to walk back to the ship, waste time. It would have a negative effect, and it would be limited, so it couldn't be abused. You could understand that if your team takes too much damage, that's it. You don't have second chances if you've made too many mistakes.
This would just get View back in the complex and back to having fun quicker.
Yeah, if you take an unlucky fall or you get bit by a spider right away when trying to clear it, because
they added a lot of fall damage. I'm just saying it could be useful to have health when you accidentally fall off of 2 stories and break both of your legs now.
But just something that can maybe cover up a mistake in a bit. that I think that's what people would maybe like, is that just assuming is that people would want to not have to stay in the ship if they're playing like seriously, if they've taken serious damage.
That's some serious damage.
Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Liam, for your time. Thanks for discussing these topics. A lot more could probably be said about them. If you think that we missed anything, please let us know in the comments. And of course, these are all subjective opinions. You don't have to agree with us in any way. You could just let us know about why we're wrong. I'm willing to listen. I'll try to respond to these or to any comments. Yeah, thank you, Liam.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be around anytime.
Okay. Now onto some shorter points that I have. 2 topics I'll tie together here. One of them was that I forgot to mention that some people wanted to see enemies not be able to cross gaps. I don't really think this is an option, because if one gap is separating 2 large portions of the map, this would end up creating a choke point where I would expect one half of the map would have a concentration of enemies and then the other half would have none. Maybe not none, but a smaller amount. And that could end up making one side of the map feel unfair to play on and the other side feeling boring. This relates to the other suggestion that some people had, which is something that I think would be neat. I just don't know how it would be implemented without affecting the balance of the game too much. This is more dynamic interactions between creatures and enemies in the environment. The main way that people want this to be done is with turrets and mines killing people. That's the most common suggestion. And while it would be cool, again, kind of back to the other point where things might just feel empty. If enemies were able to die to mines and turrets, maybe too many of them would end up dying. I don't know, it's just a little bit hard to explain, because it would be very inconsistent, I think, just due to the fact that sometimes there would be lots of traps and few enemies, and then other times there would be few traps and many enemies, or a normal amount of enemies. It would just be something that would be hard to balance without making the amount of, the population of the complexes feel normal. Maybe there could be something like only turrets that have been hit with a shovel are able to hit enemies. Overall, I think that enemies and their capabilities shouldn't really, or what affects them shouldn't really be changed, at least at the moment, without some further consideration. Because if things like this were implemented, like I said, it could just easily lead to complexes feeling empty and boring. Weather is another interesting thing to talk about, because what it seems like right now is that people think that if a moon has a weather condition, as so long as you haven't paid to go to the moon and want to stay on it, there isn't really an actual reason to stay on it, as it's just an extra challenge that you have to deal with throughout the day. With this, rather than people commenting new weather conditions that they'd like to see added to the game, it seems to be that most people want a rework of sorts, which really makes it seem like people don't totally align with this feature of the game. Most reworks that people have suggested are things that will give you a financial boost if you decide to go to one of these moons. Like, for example, all scrap is worth however much more, or if you complete a day, you'll get a little bonus. I think this would be a fair enough way of maybe incentivizing people. Like, people would end up choosing these moons more seriously without just going there for a challenge. But I don't think this is the most interesting thing that could be done to incentivize people. Something that isn't necessarily an incentive, but a really good suggestion that I liked from Chef Proudnlos, is that weather could be maybe not entirely changed into this, but it could be added as a new secret event. Maybe a dynamic weather event could be added to the game. If you've played Hunt Showdown, there's a dynamic weather system sometimes, which allows the weather to change mid-game from, let's say, light rain to heavy rain, or no fog to fog. I think this would be interesting in Lethal Company because it could just simply add to the variety of the game, as you could go into a day not expecting or not knowing what to expect weather-wise, rather than going there to a moon and knowing exactly what kind of weather you're going to deal with, or avoiding moons because of certain types of weather. This might cause issues due to the fact that it would probably be pretty RNG based, so there could be some issues. For example, if a storm rolled in and then you got struck by lightning just randomly and that ended your run, that would be a definite issue. Maybe something could be done about this, like you could get a warning on your visor that a storm is about to roll in or something, and then there's a short amount of time that you can use to take cover inside or outside the complex. But just generally on the topic of weather, I think something that needs to be done with it, as people, unless they want a challenge, like I said, they aren't touching the feature most of the time, unless they have no other option to. Alright, this video is getting a bit too long as is, and there's a whole nother batch of comments that I want to go over, correcting things that I got wrong in the video, or in the last guide that I made. But I do urge you to go and check out the community post I put out, and some of the comments, as there's a lot of good things here that I missed. Maybe I'll go over some of them in the future, but I would urge you to read some of them, as I have commented and given responses like I would have in this video to these comments, and some of my responses I feel maybe were more in depth than I went in this video. So anyways, go check those out. I'll end this section off with a question from Ghost Glitch, and they were wondering what games I'm currently playing. So right now at the moment, mainly Lethal Company, which is pretty obvious, but I also play Hunt Showdown, and that's about it for now. The finals, I played a bit of the finals recently. There are some other games I go back to every once in a while, like Deep Rock, Risk of Rain 2, Fortnite, and some others. And if you listen closely to the background music in these videos, you'll hear other games that I have played in the past. I'd say that you could maybe expect some content on some of these in the future, maybe pretty soon. I'm not totally sure about when stuff might happen with that, but do keep an eye out. And if you have a suggestion for something I should play, maybe even something that I didn't mention here, something entirely new, leave it in the comments and I'll take your word for it if it seems interesting. So now on to some good comments from the last video. One major thing that I missed because I wasn't able to read the log for the Nutcrackers is that if you don't move in front of them, they won't be able to sense you, so they won't attack you. It is important to note that if they do ever notice you moving, they will attack you, and then in the future, if you try to stand still in front of them, they will still attack you. So this trick only works once per Nutcracker. The lightning information that I went over again seems to have been cleared up, and it seems to be at the moment that if you purchase items in a storm, they won't get struck. So that's probably what happened when I was testing it. But if you do take these tools off of the moon, and then go back to another stormy moon sometime in the future with them, they will get struck. So this doesn't really seem like an intentional feature to me. It could be, I don't think it is, but hopefully it gets fixed or changed in the future so that lightning is made more consistent for everyone, as right now it's kind of confusing to understand at all what's going on with it and what you can expect to get struck. A useful tip that some of you left in the comments is that the new wrapped gift item is something that might contain something like a big two-handed item or something really heavy like a cash register, which is also two-handed. But because of this, it is best to bring them back to your ship so you don't get unlucky with one of these and you're able to just carry it back as a fairly light one-handed item that you can pocket. Another thing I missed that quite a few let me know about is that the comedy and tragedy masks seem to have a very noticeable difference, and that's the fact that you can hold a comedy mask up to your face for some time before it possesses you, but tragedy masks, if you hold them up to your face, they'll stick to your face. I'm not totally sure, this isn't something I've tested, so I'm not totally sure if it's verifiable. It does seem like something that could be a misconception, but quite a few people let me know about this, so this seems to be the case. And with that, I'll start wrapping up this video. This topic ended up making, I mean, you can see the time right now if you're still watching, but this video is a lot longer than I expected it to be, and I hardly scratched the surface of what people were suggesting and commenting and whatnot. So I highly, highly suggest, as I said earlier, to go check out the comments on the last guide that I put out in the community post, as there's some really great thinking by the community in the comments sections of those two things. But yeah, with everything, this video is pretty fun to make. Hopefully I can beat the AI voice allegations with it. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a comment or a like, or even subscribing to let me know if I should make another one of these, as this video was a bit of an experiment to see what the community would think of a community-based video. And again, with all of that, thank you for watching. I'm gonna cough, I'll cut this out.
Clear our throats.
I'm not cutting out that one.